Hello, we'll cut to the main camera in a minute, but I thought I'd show you the prep for this video. Because what we have here is my Reface DX, but I've hooked it up to my relatively recently purchased Pianobox. And I was listening to a podcast yesterday. It wasn't even about music, it was about Doctor Who, and the person on it was criticising Sega Nakanola's music, and they summed up their criticism in 2 words. General MIDI. Now, this is a box that contains all the sounds of General MIDI, which I don't know a huge amount about, but from what I gather, is a standardised set of synth sounds. And to criticise someone's music because they just used these sounds is a very poor criticism, because there's some very nice sounds here, as I'm about to demonstrate. But no, I spent several minutes now. I was listening to a podcast, but at the same time I was noodling around with this, because one of the problems with this is that all it does is display a number, and you have to get out the manual here. By the way, this is a slightly odd device, because it seems to have been designed by Germans and then built by Chinese. So the manual is in German and English, and the build quality of it is this. It's in a quite basic metal box, and you don't have any display of what instrument you're using. You have to rely entirely on the manual. Either that or have some kind of encyclopedic knowledge of General MIDI, which is 128 different instruments. Good luck with that one. So I spent a few minutes going through them, and I came up with the list, which hopefully the camera's focusing on here, and we'll go through a few of them, because this thing also includes a rather nifty drum machine and drum synthesizer. And I mean, I can demonstrate the drum machine really easily before I even cut to the main camera, because here's one of my, because it's like over 100 drum, and they're drum patterns. You can't change what it does, it just plays drum patterns. So here's drum pattern number 24, for example. And I'm not even sure how well this camera picks that up. But there you go. So I'll cut to camera prime, which is giving us this picture, and we'll get on with the rest of the video. Hello from camera prime. I have to raise my voice because the camera's over there, over a metre away. One day I will get one with a mic input and some kind of mixer system for the videos like this. So as I say, I have my list. And I also have a setup more complex than when I first tested this with a keyboard. And so I've got my DX here, which has got the rather useful octave control on. And so we'll start with a sound which I think, because this list is odd, it seems to be out by 1. So I may have got some of the names wrong. I think this sound is called Echoes, but it's a really nice sound. And you can push it down in octave and make it sound quite nice. And this list is all over the shop, and you'll have to forgive me having to flick around with buttons to find these things, but the next one I wrote down was one of the drum sounds. This is something I think called taiko drum. Drum sounds seem to sound a lot better when you push them down to lower octaves. Just above that is something called synth drum. Now this is pure 1980s. It just I wish I could find a more sort of pew pew synth drum, because it reminds me of an old children's show called Pigeon Street, on which all the all the music was done with this sort of equipment. So there's a synth drum, and then once you're up in these higher numbers, there's all these weird sound effecty things. So if you need bird song in your life, just come to me and I will send you a constant loop of bird song, which you can even push that down in octave. And I haven't even tried pushing it up in octave yet. Doesn't sound anywhere near as odd as you'd think. So now we've got to come down. And I think this one's called Choir. Again, sounds even more impressive when you push it down in pitch. Next up I discovered something called, oh, where are we? I think this is called Soundtrack. It seems to be a sort of chord sound. Reverberating synth. Not quite sure as I'm as impressed with the next one. It's something called Breathy voice. It should just be called flute, because that's more or less what it is. Breathy flute. Now we're into single figures and acoustic instruments. Celeste. This is quite pleasant, and they may not be weighted, my keys, but they're pressure sensitive. Then we disappear off into drums again, and I wish I knew the particular notes, but right at the beginning of one of my favourite early Pet Shop Boys tracks there's a nice dun 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 dun. These are timpanis. There's a family friend of ours that used to be a percussionist in an orchestra, and about a whole room of his house, and I never saw this with my own eyes, but a whole room of his house was just drums everywhere, and I'm guessing he did have at least one timpani lying around. And of course it's famous for, certainly the original, the beginning of University Challenge. Because you can do with the pitch bend what you can do with a timpani. A timpani has a pedal on it, so you can do this. Yeah, it should be about. Then we disappear off into the world of digital weirdness. Orchestral hit, which sounds straight out of the world of Fairlight digital synths. And while I was playing around with this earlier, I went, so yeah, it's a sort of sound effect orchestral hit. if you get the octave right, you can even play tunes in orchestral hit. Why you'd want to, but here we go. Oh, hang on. Orchestral hit there for you. May even... no, I haven't repeated myself actually. I thought I'd repeated myself. So we go down. It's one of my favourite things synthesizers can do. Bass notes. So this is a digital synth effectively doing an impression of something that analog synths do really well. Because I suddenly discovered this has this sort of Moog-like quality as soon as you start pushing the octaves down. Only a couple more, then I'll bring this to a close. Drum sounds, we've got to there. And these are not bad on the realism front. Steel drums. I know tunes and then I forget them. And finally, and kind of appropriately, if you're ever in need of an ego boost, you can just do this. Oh, wrong one. That's quite the opposite. Here they are. See, I've gone and written it down wrong. How bad am I? I've written it down wrong. 1, 2, 6. Audience. Otherwise known as don't cheer, just throw money. And on that note, goodbye.